1. We're checking out this 1985 Ford F-150 I found on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this is one of those honest working-class trucks that's got some real character to it. For $2,500, you're looking at a piece of American automotive history with the legendary 300 straight 6 under the hood. And let's be real, these engines are basically bulletproof. The current owner's had it for 8 years and has clearly put some love into it with new parts and maintenance. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. This truck isn't perfect. The odometer's broken, pretty common for these old workhorses. And yes, there's some rust on the body, but importantly, the frame is solid, which is what really matters on these old F-150s. What's really sweet about this setup is the 4-speed manual paired with 4WD. That's a combo that'll get you through almost anything. The black paint's seen better days, but hey, that's part of the charm with these 80s trucks. The clean title is definitely a plus. For $2,500, you're getting a true workhorse with the ultra-reliable 306, manual transmission, and 4WD capability. Sure, it needs some TLC, but these trucks are incredibly simple to work on, and parts are readily available everywhere. If you're looking for an honest, capable truck that you can actually wrench on yourself, this could be a solid buy. Just don't expect it to be winning any beauty contests. This is a worker, not a show truck. 2. We're looking at a pretty interesting find on Craigslist. A 1970 Ford F-100 Ranger long bed with some real history behind it. The current owners had this beauty since 1979, which is pretty amazing when you think about it. That's over 40 years of history with one owner. Let's get real about what we're looking at for $10,000. Under the hood, you've got a 351 Windsor V8, which is a fantastic engine, paired with a 3-speed manual on the column. Classic stuff right here. The engine's been rebuilt fairly recently, though the exact mileage is a bit of a mystery since it was replaced back in the 70s. Now, I've got to be honest with you, this truck needs some love. It's been sitting for over 5 years, so there's some work to be done. The owner's upfront about the issues. It needs a rear main seal, front brake job, and the choke needs adjusting. The green paint job is a DIY special from 25 years ago, and while it looks decent from 20 feet away, it's not going to win any paint competitions. Inside, you're looking at some wear and tear, including a torn vinyl seat. It's got manual steering and drum brakes, pure old-school truck technology here. But hey, they've done some good updates like a new fuel tank and sending unit, and it's got a bed liner. What's really cool is that it comes with lots of extra chrome and spare parts. That's always a huge plus with these classics. Being garage kept all these years has definitely helped preserve it. 3. We're checking out this super clean 1985 Dodge Ram D150 short bed on Craigslist. And let me tell you, this is one of those rare finds that makes you do a double take. For $9,500, we're looking at what appears to be an incredibly well-preserved piece of 80s Dodge history. Under the hood, you've got the tried-and-true 318 V8, an engine known for its reliability and decent power. What's really impressive here is that this truck is all original and has only 90,000 miles on the clock. That's surprisingly low for a 38-year-old truck. The seller claims it runs and drives excellently, and being garage kept has clearly paid off because there's reportedly no rust, which is pretty much unheard of for these old Rams. The AC blows cold, a huge plus for an 80s vehicle. It's got a fresh set of tires, and both the interior and exterior are clean. The red paint looks pretty sharp from the photos, and having a clean title is always reassuring. The automatic transmission makes it an easy daily driver if that's what you're after. Now, $9,500 might seem steep to some folks for an 85 Ram, but finding one this clean and original is getting harder by the day. These square-body Rams are starting to gain some serious appreciation in the classic truck market, and this one appears to be a really solid example. If you're looking for a well-preserved piece of Dodge truck history that you can actually drive and enjoy, this could be worth checking out. Just remember, it's still a 38-year-old truck, so expect some age-related quirks, but overall, this looks like a pretty sweet survivor. 4. We're checking out a pretty interesting find on Craigslist, a 1965 Chevrolet El Camino, one of those iconic car-truck hybrids that helped define an era. The seller's asking $13,500, and let's dive into what we're looking at here. This El Camino is powered by its stock 283 V8 engine, paired with the reliable Powerglide automatic transmission, a pretty common setup for these cars back in the day. The seller mentions it's a second-owner vehicle, which is pretty impressive for a 58-year-old vehicle. They've added some nice touches like dual exhaust, and it's got a new alternator. The power steering is definitely a plus for these old classics. Now, I've got to keep it real with you. There are a few things to consider here. The odometer is broken, so we don't know the actual mileage, which is pretty common for vehicles this age. The seller claims it's a reliable daily driver that runs great, which is promising, but you'll want to verify that in person. At $13,500 firm, you're in the middle range for 65 El Caminos. These vehicles have been climbing in value, but you'll want to inspect it thoroughly. The listing doesn't mention anything about rust or the condition of the interior, which are crucial factors for cars of this era. Also, there's a small error in the listing where it says FWD. El Caminos are definitely rear-wheel drive, so that's just a listing mistake. If you're looking for a classic El Camino that you can actually drive rather than just show, this could be worth checking out. Just remember to do your due diligence. Check for rust, verify the mechanical condition, and maybe bring along a classic Chevy expert if you're serious about buying. These El Caminos are getting harder to find in driver condition, and they've got a unique style that still turns heads today. 5. We're looking at a 1972 El Camino on Craigslist, and I've got to keep it real with you about this one. Listed at $6,250, this is definitely one of the more, let's say, minimally described listings I've seen. What we know is pretty basic. It's got a 350 V8 under the hood with an automatic transmission, and the odometer shows 85,850 miles. The seller mentions it runs and has good tires, plus it comes with a clean California title, which is actually a decent plus since California cars typically have less rust issues. But here's where I need to be straight with you folks. The seller's aggressive, no questions attitude and extremely limited description are definitely red flags. When someone's this defensive about answering questions about a classic vehicle, it usually means there might be some issues they're not eager to discuss. For $6,250, this is on the lower end of the price spectrum for 72 El Caminos, which could either mean it's a great deal or there are some significant issues not being disclosed. The lack of information about the body condition, interior state, transmission health, or any recent maintenance is concerning. If you're interested in this El Camino, you'll definitely want to see it in person. Just bring cash if you do, as the seller makes that point very clear. These 72s can be great project cars, but at this price point and with this limited information, you should expect to find some issues that need addressing. Remember, a proper inspection is crucial, even if the seller seems reluctant to answer questions. Sometimes the best deals come with the most challenges, but you need to know what you're getting into. 6. We're looking at something really special. A 1963 Chevrolet C10 short bed with a desirable big window option. And let me tell you, this one's had some serious love put into it. Listed at $27,000, let's break down what makes this truck stand out. First off, this isn't your typical stock C10. Under the hood, you've got a 350 Chevy with a mild cam, paired with a modern NV3500 5-speed manual transmission. That's a fantastic combination for both reliability and fun. The owner has clearly invested in making this truck a proper driver, with some really impressive upgrades, like new CPP tubular control arms, front disc brake conversion, and power steering. The list of new parts is pretty extensive. Fresh battery, new fan and shroud, aluminum radiator, and get this, working AC and heat. That's a huge plus for a 63. They've also tackled the important stuff like new windows, weather stripping, seat, carpet, and even a complete new wiring harness. The undercarriage is painted and clean, and importantly there's no rust, which is huge for these old trucks. Now let's keep it real. There are a couple of minor issues. The fuel gauge isn't working, pretty common on these old trucks, and the emergency brake isn't hooked up. The owner's also honest about the paint. It's not show quality, but still presents well. At $27,000, you're looking at a C10 that's been thoroughly gone through mechanically and modernized where it counts, while keeping that classic look. The big window option adds value, and the combination of upgrades makes this a truck you could actually drive regularly. The recent mechanics tune-up and clean bill of mechanical health is reassuring. 7. We're checking out this pretty sweet 1985 Chevy C10 that just popped up on Craigslist for $11,500. Let me tell you, these square-body C10s are becoming quite the hot commodity these days. This particular truck is looking pretty impressive, especially being a California survivor with its original black paint still intact. That's actually pretty rare to find these days. We're talking about a clean title truck with 99,000 miles on the clock, powered by that classic V8 paired with an automatic transmission. The owner's done some nice upgrades, dropping it 2-4 inches and throwing on some fresh 20-inch wheels and tires, which honestly gives it that perfect stance these trucks are known for. What's really catching my attention is that it's been California-owned since new, which typically means we're dealing with a rust-free body. That's huge for these old trucks. The owner's also taken care of the maintenance basics with new spark plugs, wires, fluids, and a fresh battery. Now, being honest with you all, at $11,500, you're in the ballpark for a well-maintained square-body C10, especially considering the California history and the fact that it's still wearing its original paint. Sure, it's not a show truck, but it appears to be a solid, clean example of these increasingly popular classics. 8. Let's talk about this fascinating 1966 Chevy C10 that's popped up on Craigslist for $7,900 in the Santa Cruz Mountains. This is one of those listings that really tells a story. First off, let me be completely honest with you. This truck isn't perfect, but it's got some serious character and history. We're looking at a California-born and raised C10 with the high-end custom trim package, which is pretty special. The odometer shows 104,864 miles, and it's rocking a 350 crate engine with about 25,000 miles on it. That's a nice upgrade. Let's talk about the good stuff. This is a top trim model with all the chrome goodies, including that cool driver's side armrest and working cigarette lighter. How's that for original? It's got some solid upgrades like front disc brakes, a rebuilt carb, new distributor, and a completely overhauled front suspension. Being a California truck means minimal rust, which is huge for these old workhorses. Now, being straight with you, there are some issues to consider. The seller's honest about some minor body panel damage, and the wood bed has seen better days with some holes and water damage. The gold paint, originally red, from the late 70s, is showing its age with some chipping. The fog lights aren't working, and it could use a tune-up. 9. We're checking out this pretty interesting 1983 GMC 1500 that's popped up on Craigslist for $10,900. Let me give you the straight scoop on this one. This is a restored square body with some unique features that definitely make it stand out. Under the hood, you've got the 305 V8 with a 4-barrel carb, which isn't the most powerful engine option from the era, but it's reliable and gets the job done. The odometer shows 150,000 miles, which is actually pretty reasonable for these old workhorses. What's really catching my eye here are some of the custom touches. Those dual exhaust stacks definitely give it some attitude, and that Apatong hardwood bed is a really nice premium touch. That's not something you see every day. The interior has been redone, which is great because these old truck interiors often need attention by now. The seller claims the AC blows cold, that's always a plus, and they've upgraded the stereo system. The power steering is working, which makes this old girl much more manageable around town. Now I've got to point out something interesting in the listing. It says Drive FWD, which has to be a typo because these trucks were definitely rear-wheel drive. That's just something to note. 10. We're looking at a pretty interesting 1974 Chevy K20 that's up for grabs at $7,000. Let me break this one down for you. This is a heavy-duty 3/4-ton Scottsdale edition, which is already pretty cool, and it's got the long bed configuration that makes these trucks so versatile. Under the hood, you're getting the trusty 350 V8 paired with an automatic transmission, a combination that's proven itself time and time again in these old Chevys. With 79,000 miles showing, it's actually got relatively low mileage for a truck of this age. What's really catching my attention here is that it's a proper 4x4 with full-time hubs and the seller mentions it's riding on new tires. That's always a plus because rubber for these big trucks isn't cheap. The custom grille adds some nice character, and that sliding back window is a great feature for ventilation. They're throwing in an aluminum canopy too, which is a nice bonus for weather protection. Being honest with you all, at $7,000, you're in the right ballpark for a working K20 from this era. These 70s Chevys are getting harder to find in good running condition, especially the 4.4 models. The Scottsdale trim level adds some nice touches, and that Class 3 hitch receiver means it's ready for some serious towing duty. Remember though, we're talking about a nearly 50-year-old work truck here. While the condition is listed as good, you'll want to do your own inspection, particularly checking the frame, drivetrain, and 4x4 components. These old K20s were built to work, and many of them have seen their fair share of heavy use. 11. Let's dive into this sweet 1970 Chevy C20 that's popped up for $12,500. I've got to tell you, this one's got some really interesting upgrades while keeping that classic charm. First off, we're looking at a clean example with just 60,000 miles on the clock, powered by the bulletproof 350 V8. But here's where it gets interesting. They've upgraded to a 700 R4 overdrive transmission that's been recently serviced. For those who know these trucks, that's a fantastic upgrade that makes highway driving much more pleasant and efficient than the original transmission. The engine's got some nice touches with an Edelbrock intake and Holley carb, which should help that 350 breathe a bit better. But what really catches my eye is how they've balanced modern convenience with classic style. You've got modern amenities like keyless entry and Bluetooth, but they've kept those awesome OEM 16 steel wheels with dog dish caps. That's just perfect for this era truck. The suspension has seen some love with new tubular upper control arms and bushings, plus a recent alignment. They've gone with tall and skinny Goodyears, which really gives it that period-correct look. The camper shell is a nice bonus for weather protection and security. Being straight with you all, at $12,500, you're in the upper range for a C20 from this era, but this one seems to justify it with those thoughtful upgrades. They've modernized the right things while preserving the truck's character. That 700 R4 transmission alone is a valuable upgrade, and the combination of classic looks with modern conveniences is really well done. 12. We're checking out this 1973 El Camino that's up for grabs at $5,500, and let me be completely honest with you about this one. We're looking at a classic El Camino with the tried-and-true 350 engine paired with a 350 automatic transmission. The sellers put in some performance goodies, headers and Flowmaster exhaust with a new dual setup, which probably makes this thing sound pretty mean. That's always a fun upgrade on these old muscle trucks. Now, let's be real here. The seller's being straight up about the paint situation. They mention paint is due, which means this car needs a paint job. The interior is described as nice, which is good news because these interiors can often be pretty rough by now. At $5,500, with a clean title ready to sign over, you're looking at a project-ready El Camino. The price point seems fair considering you'll need to factor in a paint job, but you're getting a running and driving example with some nice exhaust upgrades already done. Being totally honest with you all, this could be a solid starting point for someone wanting to get into the El Camino game without breaking the bank. These 73s aren't the most valuable year, but they've got great potential and prices have been climbing. Just remember, you'll need to budget for that paint work, and as with any 50-year-old vehicle, you'll want to give it a thorough mechanical inspection. 13. Let's talk about this 1965 Ranchero that's popped up for $9,000. I've got to be straight with you about this one because it's definitely a project car. What we've got here is a Ranchero with some interesting upgrades, most notably that 5.0 V8, presumably a Ford 302, paired with a C4 automatic transmission showing 70,000 miles. That's actually a pretty sweet powertrain combination that can make these cars really fun to drive when properly set up. Now, here's where we need to be real. This is explicitly listed as a project, and it's currently non-operational. The good news is the seller claims it has a solid body with no rust, which is actually pretty rare for these old Rancheros. A rust-free body is worth its weight in gold when it comes to classic car restoration. At $9,000, you're paying for potential here. These 65 Rancheros are getting harder to find, especially with solid bodies. However, you'll need to factor in all the work and parts needed to get it running and roadworthy again. The 5.0 C4 combo is a plus, but you'll need to verify its condition since the car isn't currently running. Being completely honest, this is for someone who's ready to take on a project and has the skills or budget to bring it back to life. It's not a drive-at-home today kind of deal, but it could be a really cool build when finished. These Rancheros have a strong following, and their values have been climbing. 14. Let's talk about this 1967 Chevy C10 that's up for grabs for $8,500. And I've got to tell you, this one's got some interesting aspects worth discussing. First off, what really catches my attention is the seller's emphasis on this being a patch-free truck with no rust in all the crucial areas: floors, kick panels, rockers, and cab mounts. For these old C10s, that's actually a pretty big deal because these areas are typically rust magnets. Having a clean, solid foundation is worth its weight in gold for these classics. Now, this isn't your typical V8 C10. We're looking at the inline 6 with an automatic transmission and power steering. While it might not be as powerful as the V8s, these inline 6s are known for their reliability and smooth operation. The truck's showing 125,000 miles and has been with the same owner for over 30 years, which often means it's been cared for consistently. Let's be completely honest here. This truck needs some work. The seller's upfront about the brake cylinders needing replacement on the front. They've already done the rear. And they mention it needs a little TLC to be roadworthy. They've already put in a new carburetor, battery, and master cylinder, which is a good start. At $8,500, you're paying for that solid rust-free body more than anything else. Finding a C10 from this era without major rust issues is getting harder every year. Sure, you'll need to invest some money in the brakes and probably other mechanical refreshing, but you're starting with a solid foundation. 15. We're checking out this 1980 Chevy Suburban Scottsdale 4R4 that's up for grabs at $5,000, and let me give you the straight scoop on this classic family hauler. We're looking at a proper old-school Suburban here, packing the reliable 350 V8 engine paired with an automatic transmission, and importantly, it's a 404 model. With 134,710 miles on the clock, that's actually pretty reasonable for these workhorses. These things were built to last. What's cool about this one is it's got the third-row seating, which wasn't always a given in these older Suburbans. The Scottsdale trim level adds some nice touches, and it's got power locks, steering, and brakes, all the basic conveniences you'd want. That roof rack is a nice bonus for hauling extra gear. The seller says it runs and drives good, which is important because these old Suburbans can sometimes be a bit rough by now. At $5,000, you're in the right ballpark for a running, driving, square-body Suburban with 444, especially in today's market where these classics are gaining popularity. Being totally honest with you all, while the listing doesn't mention any specific issues, you'll want to do your due diligence on this 43-year-old vehicle. Check for the usual rust spots these are known for, especially around the wheel wells and rocker panels. Make sure that 444 system is working properly. These old transfer cases can sometimes need attention. 16. Let's talk about this 1975 Chevy C20 that's up for $8,500, and I've got to be straight with you about what we're looking at here. The biggest highlight of this truck is what's under the hood. We're talking about the original 454 big block V8. That's a serious power plant that these C20s came with, and finding one with its original big block is getting pretty rare these days. The odometer shows 52,112 miles, though with these old trucks, it's always worth considering if it's rolled over. Now, let's be completely honest here. The seller lists the condition as fair and describes it as decent condition for a 50-year-old truck. That's the kind of straightforward assessment I appreciate. They mention it has lots of new parts and that it starts up and runs good, which is promising, but we should acknowledge that fair condition means this isn't a show truck. At $8,500, you're paying a premium for that original 454 engine. These big block C20s are getting harder to find, especially ones that run well. However, given the fair condition rating, You'll want to do a thorough inspection and probably plan on some restoration work if you want to improve its condition. Being real with you all, this could be a solid starting point for someone who appreciates these heavy-duty classics, especially with that monster 454 under the hood. Just remember, you're buying a project that you can drive while you improve it. These old work trucks often need ongoing attention, but man, that original big block makes this one pretty special. 17. We're looking at something pretty special. A 1957 F100 that's listed for $17,500. And let me tell you, this one's got some serious upgrades worth talking about. First off, this truck's history is impressive. One owner since 1977, originally sold in Pomona, and it's still wearing those original black California plates. That kind of long-term ownership often means consistent care, and being a California truck typically means better preservation. Now let's talk about the really exciting stuff. This isn't your typical 57 F100. They've done some serious modernization here. Under the hood, you've got a 90s Ford 5.0 V8, the legendary 302, paired with a C4 automatic transmission and a 9-inch rear end. That's basically the holy trinity of reliable Ford power. The seller notes only 2,800 miles since all the work was done. The suspension upgrades are where this truck really shines. They've installed a Heights front clip with A-arm suspension and coilovers, power rack and pinion steering, and power front disc brakes. For those who know these trucks, that's a massive improvement over the original setup. This thing probably handles more like a modern vehicle now. What's really impressive is the seller's claim of zero rust, and that it's not a rattle trap like a lot of these old trucks are. They've even got the heat and defroster working, which isn't always the case with these classics. 18. We've got a classic 1977 Chevy C10 pickup truck up for grabs on Craigslist. This beauty is priced at just $2,000, which seems like a pretty sweet deal for a vintage ride like this. Now, I've got to be straight with you. The seller mentions that the condition is fair, so you might need to put in some work to get this C10 back to its former glory. The odometer reading is at 10,000 miles, but the seller also notes that the odometer is broken, so the actual mileage is unknown. Under the hood, you'll find a 6-cylinder engine paired with a 3-speed manual transmission on the floor. It's a rear-wheel drive truck, so you can expect that classic pickup driving experience. The seller says the truck ran fantastic when parked, but it currently needs a new battery to get it up and running again. The C10 sports a white paint job, which could use some TLC to really make it shine. It's a long bed model, perfect for hauling gear or taking on weekend projects. The title status is clean, so you shouldn't have any issues with paperwork. As an added bonus, the seller is also offering a small quad for just $200. If you're into off-roading or have kids who love to ride, this could be a fun extra to snag along with the truck. Overall, this 1977 Chevy C10 seems like a solid project truck for someone who loves classic pickups and isn't afraid to put in some work. The price is definitely appealing, but make sure to inspect the truck thoroughly before making a decision. With some elbow grease and a bit of love, this C10 could be a real head-turner on the road. 19. We've got a real treat for you. A 1963 GMC 1000 that's up for grabs on Craigslist for just $6,500. This vintage beauty is a true gem, and it's ready for a new owner who appreciates classic American trucks. Under the hood, you'll find a V6 305 long block motor that's paired with a 4-speed manual Muncie transmission. This combination promises a thrilling driving experience that's sure to put a smile on your face. The truck is a long bed step side model, which means you'll have plenty of room for hauling gear or taking on weekend projects. The seller mentions that the truck has a clear and clean title with current registration, and it even comes with the original California black plates. That's a rare find these days, and it adds to the truck's overall charm and value. One thing to note is that the truck currently has a Chevy front grille, but rest assured, this is indeed a GMC truck. The seller also mentions that the truck comes with larger wheels and good tires, which is great news for anyone who plans to drive this beauty regularly. The good news keeps coming. The seller states that the truck is currently running and driving, and it has recently received some new parts, including a new battery, alternator, and brake master cylinder. The seller also has the air cleaner and some additional parts to go with the truck. 20. Get ready to be blown away by this incredible 1985 GMC Sierra 1500 that's currently up for grabs on Craigslist. With an asking price of $19,500, this custom-built beauty is sure to turn heads and leave a lasting impression wherever it goes. First things first, let's talk about what's under the hood. This Sierra 1500 is powered by a 350 SBC engine that has only 3,000 miles on it. That's right, this engine is practically brand new and ready to deliver some serious performance. Paired with a 700R4 transmission and a Holley Terminator X EFI system, this truck is built for speed and efficiency, but the upgrades don't stop there. The seller has added a Holley accessory drive, Summit ceramic headers, and a Melling 480/288 cam to take this truck's performance to the next level. And with 456 gears and a new redhead steering box, this Sierra 1500 is ready to tackle any terrain with ease. Now, let's talk about the exterior. This truck has a custom paint job that's sure to stand out from the crowd. The seller doesn't specify the exact color, but based on the photos, it looks like a sleek, dark shade that perfectly complements the truck's rugged appearance. And with 35 BFG KM2 tires, this Sierra 1500 has a commanding presence on the road. Inside the cabin, you'll find a Kenwood stereo system with Bluetooth connectivity, so you can easily stream your favorite tunes while you're out on the road. The seller also mentions that the truck has a trailer brake controller, which is a great feature for anyone who plans on doing some heavy-duty towing.